The wind howls through the blackened chimneys of Roubaix, 1984. Smoke stings your eyes. Sirens fade in the distance as another mill dies. In a dimly lit office above the rusted rail yards, 35-year-old Bernard Arnault stares at a single line in a bankruptcy filing. His pulse quickens. 1 franc. That's all it will cost to claim an empire everyone else has written off. This isn't luck. This is the exact second a construction engineer's son decides to rewrite the rules of wealth forever. Section 1. Destiny in the dust. But for Bernard Arnault, this decaying landscape wasn't a dead end. It was the very soil where his ambition had taken root. Born into the Ferret-Savenel construction dynasty his father Jean-Léon Arnault had built from the ground up, the 35-year-old engineer had already transformed the family firm into a formidable real estate player across northern France. Yet something deeper stirred within him. As he scanned reports of the collapsing Boussac Saint-Frères empire, the once mighty textile giant that once clothed Paris, now drowning in red ink, he saw not ruin, but revelation. The fading House of Christian Dior, a name that once defined elegance, lay buried inside the wreckage like a diamond in coal. What if this broken giant was the bridge from concrete to couture?
With the cold precision of a man who had spent years calculating load-bearing walls and risk margins on construction sites, he gathered $15 million from the family's Ferret-Savenel coffers and convinced the powerful Lazard Frères bankers to inject $65 million. In total, roughly $80 million to seize control of a company whose debts and losses dwarfed remaining assets. Most saw madness. Arnault saw mathematics. On a crisp morning in 1984, he submitted his bid. The French government, desperate to offload the failing conglomerate, accepted. For the symbolic price of 1 single franc, Bernard Arnault became the new master of Boussac Saint-Frères and its crown jewel, the fading but legendary House of Christian Dior. The newspapers called it a steal. They had no idea what kind of thief had just walked through the door.
The boardroom doors slammed shut. Inside, the old guard of Boussac Saint-Frères waited nervously. They expected a polite provincial businessman. Instead, they met a surgeon with ice in his veins. Bernard Arnault wasted no time. He ordered an immediate audit that confirmed the nightmare. Thousands of workers producing low-margin diapers, cheap textiles, and fading ready-to-wear lines that bled money every quarter. With clinical detachment, he made the call that would shock France. Over 9,000 employees were laid off in one of the most brutal corporate purges the country had ever seen. Factories were shuttered, entire divisions vanished overnight. The public screamed, unions protested in the streets of Roubaix and Paris. Politicians denounced the construction engineer from the north as heartless. But Arnault never raised his voice. He simply kept cutting, because he knew one truth. To save the soul, you must amputate the dying flesh. With the bleeding stopped and hundreds of millions raised from selling off the carcass, Bernard Arnault turned his full attention to the one asset that truly mattered: Christian Dior. The legendary fashion house was a shadow of its former glory. Its ateliers were dusty, its creative direction adrift, its image tarnished by years of neglect. Arnault did what no previous owner had dared. He poured every remaining franc into Dior. He hired fresh talent, modernized the workshops, and began restoring the aura of exclusivity that had once made the name synonymous with Parisian elegance. Within months, the transformation was visible. The flagship Avenue Montaigne store began to shine again. Orders from high-net-worth clients started climbing. Profits, once unthinkable, began to appear. The man who had started with construction cranes and family real estate was now breathing new life into the most iconic name in luxury. But this was only the beginning.
Dior didn't just survive. Under Bernard Arnault's unrelenting focus,
It became wildly profitable, generating the cash flow that would fuel everything that came next. The single franc investment had already multiplied many times over. Arnault wasn't satisfied with saving one house. He tasted the intoxicating power of luxury's gravitational pull. He saw how a single iconic brand could command margins the construction world could only dream of. This was the moment the vision crystallized. The dying textile empire he bought for 1 franc had given him something far more valuable than money, a proven blueprint for building an empire of desire. Christian Dior became the glittering cornerstone. And from this foundation, Bernard Arnault would soon launch one of the most audacious corporate conquests in modern history.
What began in the smoke-stained mills of Roubaix didn't end there. The ruthless efficiency, the willingness to make painful decisions, and the laser focus on true luxury became Arnault's signature. Just 3 years later, in 1987, he would use the momentum and capital from Dior to orchestrate the creation of LVMH, quietly acquiring stakes, outmaneuvering seasoned luxury veterans like Alain Chevalier and Henri Racamier, and eventually seizing control of the world's largest luxury group. Today, that empire spans over 75 legendary maisons, from Louis Vuitton to Tiffany Co., generating tens of billions in revenue and making Bernard Arnault one of the richest men alive. All of it traces back to that single franc. All of it traces back to the day a construction engineer's son looked at total collapse and saw his destiny.